Welcome to Kibbe on Liberty. Today I'm talking to John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods, serial entrepreneur, unapologetic capitalist. I'm going to try to convince him that he should stay entirely through a 3.5-hour set of my beloved Dead & Company, and he's going to convince me that entrepreneurs are going to solve all the problems. Check it out. Welcome to Kibbe on Liberty. John Mackey, good to see you.
Good to see you, Tim.
Good to see you. You have been an innovative entrepreneur, and you have recently, I think probably more than recently, you've left Whole Foods, your baby, and your
almost 2 years. 2 years, September 1st.
Are you enjoying independence?
I really am. Some of the things I didn't realize until I retired was that for about 35 years, I was traveling about 3 weeks of the month, every month. But I'd be home on the weekends. That's how I maintained my marriage. The weekends were devoted to being with her, but I didn't have a lot of other friends, like in Austin where I live, or I neglected them. And now I get to do what I want to do. My time is my own again, which is why when we were walking, I didn't, it's like I'm more protective of my time. You can't hijack my time. Time, I've waited too long to have control of my time again.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to give it away cheaply anyway.
It's like at a much tinier scale. When I left FreedomWorks, I discovered having a little bit of control over my own time,
mm-hmm.
and also that time was ticking.
Yes.
And it becomes more precious every day. Like I'm an economist, so I think about this in terms of trade-offs.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah.
There's a simple study of math indicates that I have fewer days ahead of me than days behind me.
Yeah.
That's just simple mathematics. So the time that you have remaining, you're a little more. When you're younger, it's like I have my whole life ahead of me.
Right.
It's like you can be more casual about it. But I'm 70. I'll be 71 in a month, and it's like, well, I don't have more time out in front of me than I have in the past. So the time I have left, I want to be more protective of it.
Yeah. But it's also kind of liberating to realize that you don't have forever to do whatever it is you want to do.
I've actually had that feeling for most of my life. And I was doing a podcast interview just the other day, and I said I always had a sense of I need to get on with my work because I don't have forever on it. And so that's... But since my main work, Whole Foods, is now for me complete, I'm doing my new business, but I'm not letting that master me. At least not yet. I brought my money, I brought my wisdom, I brought my ideas, my vision, my leadership, but I'm trying to be protective of not letting it absorb me completely.
Do you have the discipline to do that?
As long as things go well,
yeah.
I do. The test will be, what if things don't go well? Will I feel that I have to jump in and take over everything in order to save it?
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't. I don't know. I really am just fingers crossed, knocking on wood, praying that won't happen.
But you're also a serial entrepreneur and you can't help yourself. Tell us about the new thing.
Well, that's kind of it's a little bit of a joke because I always said there were two kinds of entrepreneurs in the world. There were the serial entrepreneurs who start lots of businesses and then sell them. And then there's the builder entrepreneur who, gets a business and builds it and grows it. And I always thought I was a builder entrepreneur, but it turns out after all, I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Just 44 years apart.
But I had never heard that distinction before, but seeing a project through and the evolution and making sure that the idea that was so awesome doesn't get corrupted is different than people that just like, oh, here's some money. Oh, it didn't work. I don't care.
Well, no, I think a real serial entrepreneur, their kick is getting things off the ground, and then they get bored with it. It's like, oh, it's getting bureaucratic. It's getting too routine. I want to get on to the next exciting startup. With a builder entrepreneur, it's like you're growing it, and it's like, and you just want to keep making it better and better and better and better and better, and it's not boring.
Yeah.
So that's the way it was for me with Whole Foods. It got more and more interesting, not more and more boring. But now that I've started up Love.Life, and Love.Life is, in some ways, it's a continuation of what I think my own higher purpose is in life, and it's kind of on a continuum with Whole Foods. Whole Foods was about selling healthy food to people and helping people to be healthier through good nutrition. And Love.Life has that too, but it's more than just food. It's also all the other aspects: exercise, stress management, sleep, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. So the simplest way to say it is that Love.Life is like we're going to have like a holistic health membership club. We just opened up our first holistic health membership club just 2 days ago in LA area, in El Segundo. It's located next to one of Whole Foods Market's highest volume stores, because I think they're drawing in the right traffic and the right type of customer for Love.Life. And we took over an old Best Buy, so this is big. It's 45,000 square feet. We've got a healthy restaurant. We've got a state-of-the-art fitness gym, and we've got yoga and Pilates connected to that. We also have a spa and all kinds of recovery modalities, so spa for massage, facials, wraps, scrubs, things like that. But then also we have cryotherapy, and we have hyperbaric oxygen chambers, and we have infrared saunas and red light beds and regular saunas. We have all these different modalities for people to recover from exercise and stress. And then we've got, for play, we have these pickleball courts. We have 3 pickleball courts, which is sweeping the nation. You probably know about that.
Yes. And I've heard of this thing.
Well, pickleball is fun. And the thing that sets it apart from typical, like tennis or other racket sports, is that you have fun playing pickleball the very first time you play it. So more like ping pong in a way. Anybody can do it and have fun the first time. And then people that are in their 80s can play with, it's like, and it's an intensely social game. So you make all these connections and relationships with people. Anyhow, and then we have a medical center. And so our vision is a very different one, that we hope to change the way people think about medical care. Because if I ask this question sort of rhetorically, when do people go see a doctor, generally?
When it's too late.
Well, when they're sick.
Yeah.
When they need a doctor.
Yeah.
And our vision is that we now have this amazing technology. We have all this testing technology, of all these assessments we can do. And we have wearables, like I have an Apple Watch on, other people wear Oura Rings or Garmin's or Fitbits, and then we can collect a massive amount of data. Like, I'll just give you an example. I discovered from my Apple Watch a couple of interesting things that changed my life. One was that I can track my sleep, and there's an extra app I have on my Apple Watch called Auto Sleep. And I discovered that anytime I drank any alcohol whatsoever, my deep sleep would go to 0. Just one glass of wine or one beer, no deep sleep. And my overall sleep would drop about an hour. And so I just wouldn't quite feel as good the next day after I have something to drink. So I did lots of experiments. I just did it again and again and again, because I actually didn't like what the data was showing me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, are you sure I know deep sleep again? Dang. And so then, but I reached the conclusion that, you know what? I'd rather have a really good night's sleep than to have a drink. And so I haven't had any alcohol now for 2.5 years. I reserve the right that some other night somebody might entice me and I might say, what the hell? I won't sleep so well tonight. Well, but so far, sleep's winning out. It could be that I'm just getting older and I just like to sleep. But also this Apple Watch, I was beginning to have this kind of, occasionally I'd notice this little rapid heartbeat, and I didn't think too much about it because it was like, it would always go away. And then I'm on this, now it's just about exactly 2 years ago, I'm on a hiking trip with some friends in Austria, and we're on a lunch break, and my pulse is still accelerated. And I said, this is really weird, because generally my pulse rate after I finish hiking or take a break goes back down to the normal pace, but pulse rate within, 5 minutes or so, quick recovery time. And I said, and also, and he said, my friend said, you know what, sounds like you may have AFib. I said, AFib? You gotta be kidding. And he says, no, let's test it. And there's something on my watch that says ECG, and you open up the thing, there it is, ECG, touch on it, and then you just hold this for 30 seconds, and it gives you a reading. And I did it, and the reading came back, you show signs of atrial fibrillation. It was like, holy smoke. He says, yeah, you got AFib, dude. You can go see a doctor about it. So I went and saw the doctor, and he said, well, let's just watch this for a while. You say it, you don't get it very often. But then now that I knew what it was, I started to notice it, and it started happening more frequently.
Yeah.
So the long and the short of it is that I've now, because I knew about this, I went and had what's called an ablation. I did that just a couple of months ago, and it's a heart procedure, and it's complicated. You can just look it up. But the bottom line is it got rid of my AFib. So I didn't even know that if I didn't have this watch. So the point of this whole story is that we have technology that helps us be more conscious about things like sleep and about your heart and pulse rates. And when you have knowledge, you can start to make decisions that improve your health. So our vision of Love.Life is people will do these tests, and we'll get a baseline for where people are. And with that baseline, then a doctor and a health coach or wellness coach can work with them to create sort of an individualized precision plan for you personally that can help you get healthier. And that we are all on a health journey, and we can be healthier than we are. We've just lacked the knowledge and the tools to know what to do.
Yeah.
But so now we have it, we can know what to do, and a doctor can help you. So that Love.Life's vision is the doctor's job is really, instead of going to see a doctor when you're sick, and it might be too late, that now you have cancer, or now you have serious heart disease, now you have some autoimmune disease that's not going to easily go away, that we can see these trend lines, and the doctor's job is to keep you from really actually getting sick, so that you need a doctor. That's the paradox of it. The doctor's job is to keep you from needing a doctor.
Yeah.
And then helping people to become the healthiest, best versions of themselves, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah. Regular viewers of Kibbe on Liberty already know how obsessed I have been with the pandemic industrial complex and all of the stupid, authoritarian, and downright evil things that the government did to us during COVID-19. Well, I'm proud to announce a new investigative series that looks to get to the bottom of all of that. It's called The Cover-Up, and I'm producing it in cooperation with BlazeTV. The only place you're going to see this is BlazeTV, so go to FauciCoverup.com/Kibbe and use the code FauciLied for $30 off your annual subscription. Do it now. The truth is out there. So it sounds like a radical decentralization of even the American healthcare system, which is very top down.
Oh God, yes.
You're always dealing with.
Well, I'll give the current medical system's regulatory capture is gone berserk. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is arguably the most powerful industry in the world, and
I can't actually tell if it's private or public at this point.
I mean, because it's not
even a revolving
door.
I think they're in the same building. Yeah.
Well, different floors.
Yeah, maybe. This is sort of my red pill moments during the pandemic when you discovered just how intertwined scientific research and medical innovation.
And who's funding the research.
And who's funding it and who owns it.
Yeah.
Like the government actually owns intellectual property in the vaccines that they were pushing. And I'm like, it's like a deadly conflict of interest.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're thinking regulatory capture may be an inadequate phrase. It's much worse than just regulatory capture.
I've been struggling for a stronger phrase, and I've toyed with political capture, because it, the question is, does the pharmaceutical industry buy governments? And there's plenty of evidence of that. Do they love all of the barriers to entry that they've created? Yes.
Yeah. How do you get a new drug passed?
Yeah, but you see like the centralization of funding of science. And by the way, this started at least with Newt Gingrich. It didn't, certainly not a Democrat-only phenomenon, but the reason why Anthony Fauci had so much power is he controlled the money supply for universities, for the entire...
For where the research money goes, yeah.
And even if he wasn't writing the check, if you didn't get the imprimatur of NIH, you probably weren't getting private funds.
Well, let's just, say for the time being, for the sake of this conversation, is that the system is been corrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back
so with Love.Life, we want to help empower individuals to take control of their own health and not need to take pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, and not need to, because generally the drugs are not actually curing anything, right? They're managing symptoms. Like, they were happy to give me drugs that would minimize my symptoms of having AFib. I didn't want to minimize my symptoms. I wanted a cure. I wanted a solution. So I don't have to take these pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
I've had this ablation.
I don't think it's an accident that your libertarian philosophy and where you're going with this Love.Life project is, I don't think it's an accident those things are happening, because I've always thought that libertarianism, in my mind, the individual responsibility to look in the mirror and judge yourself and take responsibility for that. It's kind of a philosophy of self-help, right?
It really is. And self-help, but also self-responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't expect the government to take care of me. I want to take care of myself and empower me with information and data where I can make rational, intelligent choices. And I'm not going to be dependent on those guys. And I'm going to eat a healthier diet. I'm going to try to get the right exercise, get enough sleep. I'm going to optimize my biology to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah. And I think, obviously, I use the phrase self-help, which is kind of maybe a vulgar pop term.
No, I read tons of self-help books.
Okay.
So I'm into self-help.
But I really want to do sort of Ayn Rand meets Jerry Garcia sort of self-help philosophy.
Are you going to see Dead and Company?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going tonight too.
Oh, we're all going.
Okay, there you go.
I have to admit, I've already been 6 times.
This is my first time. I've not done this experience, but I have some. Do you know John Popola and Lisa Versace? Lisa in particular, she was a deadhead in her youth.
Yeah,
so she begged me. She said, "Please, this is the best favor if you just go." And I said, "I'm going to go, but here's the thing, Lisa. I got to go to bed no later than 10 o'clock. I've given up alcohol to sleep better. I will give up, listening past 9:30 or so tonight." So, but they're starting early. It starts at 7:30, I think. So
I'm about to break your plan, or you'll have to walk out. So, Bob Weir, who's 75, 76, they're still playing 2 full sets. Start at 7:30, take a 20-minute break. They're not going to end until 11:30.
That's okay. I will be probably getting up to go pee about the time they end.
This is a totally different rabbit hole, but it's related to this. The joke, which is not really a joke, is that I consider myself the intellectual bastard child of Ayn Rand and Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
And I think those 2 things go together quite nicely. But as a deadhead,
I'm not sure they would have liked each other, though.
No, they would have very much not liked each other. But it's sort of that rugged individualism.
Yes.
The responsibility, I'm going to get this done. Whereas Jerry was he was an anarchist, right? He was a leader of a large community, a very vibrant,
self-organizing community in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. And if you've ever been to a dead parking lot, shakedown streets, it's a marketplace. Mm-hmm. They were rabid capitalists. And not only were they rabid capitalists, but they spontaneously developed a set of rules that kind of protected the community, quite often from the cops.
Yeah.
But also from bad actors. Like they cared enough about their community.
But it's self-policed.
Self-policed, yeah.
Yeah. That any really robust, resilient community has to self-police.
Yeah.
You have to be able to exclude the ones that are going to actually be harmful to the community. You're not banishing them from humanity, but you have the right to protect and police your own communities.
Yes. So like the vibe you'll get even tonight, like it's been a long time since Jerry died, but the vibe you'll get tonight is you're going to feel like you're with family, because everybody there is self-selected, and strangers treat you incredibly well. You see like the potential upside, like of free people just.
It sounds like you're a burner too.
I have never done it.
Really?
Never done it.
That just sounds. You're basically saying the same thing to all my burner friends.
I always wanted to do it, but by the time I had the capacity to do it, I felt like I was showing up too late to get it. So I haven't done it. But I'm clinging.
That's why you have your younger friends to initiate you.
I know. I need to find
the other Matts.
Yeah. Are you guys burners?
I'm too old to do it. I do it.
Yeah. Antonucci's in. So on the I was trying to think of a graceful pivot, but I'll just change subjects a little bit. But I think it's relevant. So if you're talking about spontaneously emerging order and people following rules without anybody telling each other what to do, it gets to this fundamental question where you had been to this event with Matt Ridley and Steven Pinker here at FreedomFest about whether or not people are rational. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a complex question to answer. It's a mixed bag.
It is a mixed bag, but Pinker gave me a perspective on it that had never quite occurred to me before, because I'd come at it from the point of view that I almost never convince people to change their minds based on evidence and facts. I just see it again and again and again that people, I do change my mind. When you give me a good argument, I change my mind. I don't self-identify with my beliefs. My beliefs are like a suit of clothes. Wear them, and then I go take them off at night, and they're not me. I may put them on again, maybe, but maybe I'll put different clothes on because that's not me. But other people, in my experience, their beliefs are their identity. So if you argue against their beliefs, they feel like they're being personally attacked. That you're attacking them personally. And it just took me so long to realize, oh my God, they're just different than me.
Yeah.
They really are upset. They hate me because I made an argument to them that they couldn't answer. Or then they get on the internet and they Google, and they just, for confirmation bias, they'll find somebody that makes an argument, and then, somebody can answer this guy. But Pinker, what he got me thinking about was, yes, people can be irrational about things like political beliefs, religion, diet, where they have opinions about music or art or whatever. But
opinions about music are objective and fact-based. And if you're not a deadhead, you're probably a bad person.
Well, maybe I'll be a deadhead after tonight. I'm an open mind. Maybe I'll join your cult.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they're mostly rational about most of their lives. They're rational about, right? They're rational about just all kinds of things, just the little things that we do through our life. That they have self-interest. They have self-interest. Self-interest leads us to be rational about most things most of the time. And I hadn't really thought about it that way because I was just frustrated that more people didn't change their mind about things.
Yeah.
But so he's saying, but yes, rationality pervades our life, punctuated. In other words, the irrationality is there, but it's not the predominant thing for most people most of the time.
Yeah.
I thought, that's rational. He persuaded me. He made a good rational argument.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about this new brand that we love here at Free the People.
Our friend Jennifer Say, free speech warrior and truth teller, has started her own athletic clothing brand. It's called XXXY Athletics, and it is the only athletic brand standing up for women's sports. We met Jen when she spoke out against the insanity of COVID lockdowns and school closures, and stood up for our freedoms. She risked her reputation to do the right thing, and she's doing it again now. A lot of other brands out there claim to champion women, but only Jen actually does it with her new brand, XXXY Athletics. As a former elite gymnast, she was the 1986 national champion. She knows the importance of protecting Title IX. And as the former Levi's brand president, she knows a thing or two about great products. XXXY Athletics just launched their performance wear for both men and women, including cool t-shirts, bike shorts, and leggings. So check it out at xx-xyathletics.com or thetruthfits.com. Don't give your money to athletic brands who don't share your values. Give it to a brand that speaks truth, stands up for free speech, and puts quality first. Use the code Kibbe75 and you'll get free shipping with orders of $75 or more. Finally, an athletic brand with a cause you can get behind. Go show XXXY Athletics some love. Wear the truth out loud. Go to xx-xyathletics.com and use the code Kibbe75. That's KIBBE75 to order. Do it now. I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I'll use a different metaphor and quote a different band. I'm a huge Rush fan, and the lyricist for Rush was a guy named Neil Peart, who was really into Ayn Rand. He was maybe more libertarian than objectivist, but he wrote this album called Hemispheres, and he was talking about the two hemispheres of the brain, the heart and mind, left brain, right brain. There's some truth to it and maybe some mythology to it, but I think that humans have both those things. They have their emotions and they have their reason. And whether we like it or not, as people that really appreciate the logic of economics and how it can help us understand a lot of the world, I don't think most people process the world that way.
No.
It's emotional.
Yeah.
And it's like someone I trust made an argument to me, or someone I love got hurt doing X. Like it's the world around us, and we're sort of being bombarded with all of these facts and stories and feelings, and that is part of the rational part too.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah. Now to quote Mises, now I've quoted Jerry, and I've quoted Ayn Rand.
Does this mean you're not just two parts or three parts? Or you got Mises has got his stake in you too?
Well, this is like I shouldn't say this. Some of my viewers would get upset. I'm more fascinated with Hayek's work at this point than Mises, and it's a little unfair to separate them in some ways.
Well, I frankly, as am I, and I would say when I was younger, I found, when I was a younger libertarian, I found Mises very compelling. But as I've gotten older, Hayek's vision of emergence, and spontaneous order, as well as sort of distributed intelligence, it just makes a lot more sense to me, because Mises had that. He's just such a brilliant guy, but he really did have it's all deductive reason. It's like, actually, it's really not all that.
Yeah.
So Hayek's had a bigger influence on me in the long run.
What's funny is I forget what chapter it is in Human Action, because I studied under this professor, Don Lavoie, who was very much into the Austrian critique of central planning, based on distributed knowledge and what he called the greater social intelligence that emerges when people are free to figure stuff out. But there's a chapter in Human Action where Mises talks about reason, which is why I'm going here. And he says that, most of what we do on any given day, we don't think about it. We can't explain why we did it. It's just rote. It's what we did yesterday. It's what our ancestors did.
And it makes our lives easier.
Yeah. And that's that's, I don't know, I don't think he put a percentage to it, but that's maybe 98% of what you do.
Probably, yeah.
But there's also that creative spark, that thinking, that reason that solves the big problems. And you're confronted in real time with things that you didn't expect to happen, radical uncertainty. And that's the reason part. Mm-hmm. Everything else is just what you did yesterday.
Yeah. Or what you've gotten, what's become ingrained in your habit.
Yeah.
So that's one reason they make a big deal out of, like, maybe the best-selling self-help book in a long time is Atomic Habits by James Clear, because he's working on you at these, small little habits. The atomic habits, the 1%, it adds up.
Yeah.
And you make these incremental shifts. If you make a 1% shift and the compounds over time, it makes a huge difference. So once you have to take responsibility for your habits in a way. You have to be conscious of your habits and nurture the habits that are going to be compounding in positive ways, and slowly start to kind of dig up the habits that are making our lives less joyful and good.
Yeah. Which gets to strategic questions. You've been fighting for liberty your entire life. We had this argument a couple months ago in Austin at Magat Wade's book party. The question is, if we're worried that people are irrational in their politics and irrational in many aspects of their life, can you be optimistic about the future of liberty? And I could give you a horrifically depressing view on that, but I tend to look sort of around the corner and say, you know what, people just have a way of figuring stuff out. But you were more pessimistic then.
Well, I'm a very much a long-term optimist, because because I know the history, I know the past, I know the humans continue to incrementally make progress, and emergence occurs, and unexpected things change trajectories. One of the questions I get asked a lot by journalists is, what's the world going to be like in 20 years? And I always say the same thing. It's like, nobody knows. Because if you go back 20 years ago, so think about how the world is different today than 20 years ago, just from a technology standpoint. There weren't any smartphones, none, 20 years ago. They didn't exist. And look how that's incredibly changed our lives. If you go back a little 40 years ago, there was no internet. And so now we look, AI has emerged in the last couple of years, right? So who the heck knows how that's going to change everything? In fact, one of the things I like to tell people is, AI is going to get rid of the smartphone. And I say, well, what do you mean it's going to get rid of the smartphone? I said, because the AI is going to be the smartphone. The AI is going to be a wearable. We're going to have it in our ear, or we're going to have it in a ring, or we're going to have a watch, and we don't need to look at our phone. It'll do everything. We'll say, how tall is Mount Everest? And it'll tell us what it is. Or we'll ask, make a reservation for the True Food Kitchen for dinner for 3 tonight. And it'll just be our little servant, answering all the questions, doing all the things we want for it, asking questions. We don't have to do internet searches anymore, which raises the question of, if AI is corrupted and it's our main source for information,
right,
then you got a whole new science fiction genre there.
Right.
But my point is that it's very difficult to predict the future, because the future is emerging all the time. People can only project what they know into the future linearly, and they do not account for emergence in ways they can't imagine, right? Because it never occurred to them that might happen. That's why I can be optimistic about the future, because you can do the trajectories right now, and you say, wow, man, all these young people are socialists. They're all being brainwashed. We're bound to, America's going to fall. And it's like, no, that might happen. That's certainly one alternative history narrative we can talk about. But then again, there's emergence in unexpected ways that we can't anticipate. Sometimes those are good. Most of the time, I'd argue a lot of that emergence is good. Sometimes it's not good.
Yeah.
But it's fundamentally unknowable. And so I just believe you go through life open-minded and open-hearted, and try to be kind and do as much good as you can, and learn, change, and evolve, because that's what's happening in the universe. It's constantly, I just believe evolution's everywhere. Everything's evolving all the time. It's Heraclitus. It's never still. It's constantly changing, and you got to flow with that change and be part of it, hopefully in a constructive, creative way.
That's the optimistic. Like every time I see some sort of government tyranny, and a specific example, the scientists that were censored by government agencies during COVID.
The counter narrative. Yeah,
the counter narrative broke through. It can break through, and if anything, you have these alternative media platforms that have actually made Jay Bhattacharya is a stronger voice for his profession, even though Stanford essentially tried to not more than stifle him. They tried to crush him, but they can't really do that anymore.
It's very difficult because there's when you just had 3 television stations and a handful of radio stations and you had all the local newspapers, but they were all hooked up to the AP. It was a lot easier to try to control information.
Yeah.
Today, it's almost impossible to control it. I mean, even China is failing to completely control the information.
Yeah.
They do have you can have strong brainwashing processes, and I've seen a lot of that happen with COVID, for example. But as we said, there's counter narratives. There's new ways for people to get information out. There's viral good ideas spread.
Yeah.
Virally, it's hard to stop them.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to, we stay open-hearted and open-minded, and we move forward into flowing in life, knowing that utopia is not one of the options, but we're probably not also going to go into, an apocalypse either.
Yeah. And for your specific project, I'm thinking about this. It's kind of, I don't know if it's biohacking or life hacking itself that you're trying to empower people.
Both.
And it in many ways is pushed upon us by the failures of top-down systems that aren't solving those problems.
Well, they can't solve the problems. Ultimately, innovation and creativity, that's what humans are really good at. And top-down is bureaucratic, and by definition, not innovative, not creative, just coercive. And so almost all progress in the world is made through decentralized innovations that are just 1,000 flowers blooming, and a lot of the flowers die, but others iterate, and then it's beautiful. It's just it's dynamic. It's the spontaneous order, and but it scares people, because I was talking to Matt Ridley about this a little bit earlier, and it scares people because it scares them that nobody's in control. Somebody's got to be in control. God's got to be in control, or we need a powerful president to be in control. Somebody needs to be in control, because otherwise it's chaos.
Yeah.
And chaos is scary. It's like, but for me, chaos is not really scary. I don't really think of it as chaos. Again, I believe in spontaneous order. So it may seem to be chaos at times, but it's actually, the world's constantly ordering itself. It's spinning out of control, but that's okay, because there's still sort of there's sort of spontaneous order or spontaneous controls built into it. There doesn't have to be an ego or centralized control of it all.
Yeah.
That scares people, though. Most people are frightened of it.
Yeah. I mean, Hayek's whole project was based on the idea that we mostly didn't know, and the struggle to figure stuff out in a decentralized way was the only way to figure stuff out.
We don't know as individuals, but oftentimes collectively. Hayek's, one of his great insights was that no matter how brilliant any individual is, the collective intelligence includes that intelligence plus everybody else. So that's one reason you can be optimistic about the future is because the collective intelligence is wise, and it does tend. It may go off in weird directions, but then it sort of rights itself and continues to evolve, provided there is freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest threat I still think is that you're going to end up in some massive, dictatorship with, some elite group, whether they be Chinese communists or Davos people or whatever. I don't want to create the boogeyman out there, but that feels like that we've got to, put all these people under. When COVID came in and they started doing these lockdowns, we started seeing the worst of that bureaucratic mindset come into reality. It's like they're arresting people for being on a paddleboard with nobody else around.
Right.
Just because they didn't want anybody to be free. So
had nothing to do with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is something to be concerned about, I think. That there is a drive for authoritarian control.
Yeah. I went back and
Ring of Power in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the Precious.
Sauron, the Precious.
The Precious. I went back and reread Hayek's Counter-Revolution of Science.
A lot of people think that's his greatest work.
Yeah, well, I do, but the first time I slogged through it in graduate school, I didn't fully comprehend what he was trying to accomplish. But it is essentially a critique of scientism. Yeah. And there was some fairly wacky, harebrained ideas before Marx sort of hijacked socialism and made it a violent thing that would just put the scientists in charge. And I reread it during COVID because I'm like, I think that's still the belief. This is what you saw with COVID. I mean, there's a belief that the experts need to be in charge. Yeah. They're the ones that know. It's that same urge, like somebody has to be in control. Let's put the experts in. They're credentialed experts, okay? They should be running things. They've been credentialed. They've passed the test. And a lot of people, they don't have any counter argument to that. Yeah. Which is the experts don't know shit. They just think they do. We're making a T-shirt, if you don't mind stealing your intellectual property.
Experts don't know shit?
Yeah. Well, that and I feel like, and I've talked to Matt Ridley about this, science has taken a beating in this process, but real scientists would tell you that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do, and which is why you have a process.
And they would tell you that we have a hypothesis, and we're testing it, we're gathering information, and the hypothesis will evolve. Yeah. A real scientist knows we're continually evolving knowledge. The knowledge is not fixed for all time. It's like that argument you hear all the time about climate change, right? Which is, the argument is settled, okay? 97% of scientists agree. And that other 3%, we're going to re-educate anyway. Yeah. So, it's like, you don't understand. This is a hypothesis that's being tested, and certainly these models, I'm not saying anything about whether the climate's changing by definition, because everything's changing, everything's evolving. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing can be an open question, but it is changing. It always will change, and it's how fast it changes, blah, 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 blah. But this whole idea that the science is decided is fundamentally not scientific.
Yeah. At Kibbe on Liberty, freedom is a lifestyle 24/7, something you live and breathe and wear every day. If that describes you, you need the very best Liberty swag in the market today, just like this shirt I happen to be wearing. Go to freethepeople.org/KOL and check out our exciting merch. You too can love liberty and look cool. And it's probably good that we sort of broke that pretense of government
which
experts.
Which is a good word.
We can do something with that. And this sort of like where I want to go with this, if we can...
And silencing the experts that disagree. We saw that with the COVID when the counter narrative was there. And you know what? Now we're reaping the consequences. Like, my wife, for example, is a vaccine injury, 2.5 years now, with chronic fatigue. lots of long COVID symptoms that came from the vaccination itself.
Yeah.
She took the first booster. She was going to go to India, and nobody was vaccinated, or very few people were vaccinated with us. Deborah, don't take that. Do not take that booster. You've been shot up with this stuff already twice. You don't need to do another. She did it anyway, and within 24 hours, she broke out in a rash and had that for 3 months, and then long COVID kicked in, and she's been in chronic fatigue really ever since.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
And
It's made me skeptical about government experts about health, though.
right. Well, I'm now skeptical. I'll take you a step further. I'm now skeptical. I certainly didn't approach my critique of COVID having any opinions about vaccines when I started. I was just thinking about the economic consequences of locking down the world.
Which was horrible, created so much poverty.
Yeah. But now go ahead.
In my political arguments with my friends who, that they're trying to get you on the red team or the blue team, and, it's like Biden is such a disaster that, and you can't really vote for a libertarian candidate. There's no chance. So Kennedy has no chance. You got to vote for Trump. And it's like, Trump did the single stupidest thing that's ever happened in my entire life. He locked down the world economy.
Yeah.
That's the dumbest thing anybody's ever done. He says, well, that's just one mistake. But it was the worst possible mistake you could do, and it wasn't his only mistake. Mm-hmm. That one, I said, right there has disqualified him, in my opinion. But boy, you just now I must now be on the blue team. It's like, I'm not on any of these teams. I'm just calling it the way I see it. Shouldn't have locked down the world economy. If Trump hadn't done that, he would have been reelected, because there wouldn't have been this whole terrible crisis with the economy going to shit.
He would have been a hero. Like I told Terry that, like, in those early days of talk about lockdowns, Trump being Trump just blurted out, "We can't do that. That would be a disaster."
I guess he lost his own confidence, and somehow he empowered Fauci to.
Well, he got bullied. He got bullied by the experts, intimidated by the experts, which is a fundamental, colossal, unforgivable failure of a chief executive.
Yeah,
you can't. I can't let that go.
Yeah.
So we're not going to find much optimism in the outcome of the next election, is what you're telling me.
No, probably not. No.
Probably not.
But you know what? Here's the thing people don't realize is that, because people always, we're still going to be inventing cool stuff. We're still going to be innovating. We're still going to be making this progress despite ineptness at the senior governmental levels. And, could argue that we've had a president for the last 3.5 years that hasn't really been completely, all there, and we're still just kind of bumbled along. It's okay. And so, all things given, you'd like to have a good president that makes good rational decisions. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of resilience in a complex society like the United States. There's lots of other areas where you make progress and advancement, and you solve problems. I see how we're beginning in education to innovate around the top-down centralized states where, there's new solutions coming up all the time. And now with the ways that you can decentralize learning with the internet, for example, you don't even need it to be processed through certain so-called experts deciding what's the information you need to learn. It's like all that information is available. All the books ever written are in a lot of ways available today. There's never been a better time if you want to learn stuff, they've never had so much access to so much information. And just teaching kids how to learn is the greatest gift any kind of educational system can do, because, I'm a guy that never, I just took courses I was interested in college. I just took control of my own education. But I knew how to learn. I learned how, and I read, and I learned how to think for myself. That's the great thing about studying philosophy. It does teach you how to think. And so I didn't need those teachers any longer. In a way, I think I was free to follow my own curiosity, however far it took me. I just think that's really that's the main job of education, is to teach people to think critically and how to learn, how to read, how to learn. and spontaneous order. Let that curious mind launch into the universe.
So because of COVID, a lot of parents are hacking education.
Yes.
Breaking out of the cartel.
It's a great example of a terrible thing like COVID and the school lockdowns and kids not going in there to waking people up. It's like, those schools aren't on my side. Those teachers don't care about my child. They're just, this. I'm going to do something about this. And so, yes, it's created sort of a rebellion. You can argue that, and I don't want to argue about crypto. I have different views than most libertarians about crypto. I'm going to debate against Bitcoin tomorrow. But the downturn that happened in 2008, Bitcoin was invented or released about that time. So many people had given up on those bailouts that the United States government could be possibly trusted responsibly with the currency was absurd. So they, the Hayekian private money thing had a huge amount of libertarian energy going into the whole crypto movement. Was just seen as an alternative to that.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that crisis also begets creativity and innovation.
Yeah. And
some of those are dead ends.
Yeah. Well,
but that doesn't mean that the intentionality of alternative creation is a good thing.
I'm kind of a Maoist on innovation. I want to see all the flowers bloom. He didn't mean it, though.
Oh, he chopped all the flowers down.
I know, It was a trap.
So you created some flowers. You're dead.
Yeah. So if we can hack our own health, if we can hack our own self-esteem, which is what your new project is, if parents are hacking education, can we hack government power? Like, is there a workaround for whatever they might throw at us? I always think there is. And I was kind of hoping that crypto would be like one of the great evils of government power is the way they manipulate the money and credit.
It's true, but in one sense that the biggest hack would be, and crypto is possibly a step in that direction, is, look, government, the statistics of, if you go back to the year 1900, 124 years ago, the government at all levels in the United States spent 6% of the GDP. Local, state, and federal spent 6% of the GDP. They now spend about 40% of the GDP. And they want more. There's no limit to how much money the government wants. And for a long time, the governments couldn't spend that much money because they didn't have a way to get it. And then you had one of the innovations that began to occur was ways to collect large sums of money from the people through income tax, sales tax. It used to be they just try to get it through tariffs, right? And it was kind of a hidden tax, and the American people wouldn't put up for these taxes. And one of the negative consequences of the Civil War was that was the first time Lincoln tried to implement an income tax, and it ended up, the Supreme Court ended up shooting it down. But then you had laws got passed, and you passed new amendment. How the hell they ever passed the income tax amendment? It's like, good God, that had to be the greatest accomplishment the progressives have ever done, was getting income tax kind of into the Constitution. And but that's the ultimate hack. Is they talk about defunding the police, right? What we really need to do is defund the government, and obviously we need. I'm not an anarchist. I do believe in the limited state. The problem is it has to be a limited state, and to me today it's far less of a limited state than it used to be. It's almost like something keeps growing and growing, and eventually you think it's cancer. It's kind of a. So you're talking about hacking the government, you got to hack the funding.
Yeah. Well, I know you're listening to this music thinking, I really want to get down there and hear some club music. I would highly recommend you go see The Dead instead tonight.
I'm going to go see The Dead, but I'm still going to go to bed early.
Yeah. You're so stubborn. Is there anything you want people to check out? Where do we find more about the new project or anything else you're working on?
So it's first, I have a new book out, and it's called The Whole Story: Adventures in Love, Life, and Capitalism. I got to tell you, it's the best book I've written by far. It reads like a novel. It's 400 pages, but most people read it in a couple of days because they can't put it down because it's just this gripping. It's one story after another, and it's very open. And it's partly it's mostly about Whole Foods, but it's also a personal memoir about my own growth as a leader and my own spiritual growth as a human being. And so it's got psychedelics in it, which was very liberating for me in my youth. And I have 3 different parts where that had a big impact on me. And it's just a very open, candid book. So if you want to know more about me, the best place to do is start with reading the whole story. Secondly, I have started another business called Love.Life, and you can get that at www.love.life. That is our website. And we've got a telehealth business. We're licensed to practice medicine in all 50 states, and we have a vibrant business that way. We also have an online coaching business for diabetes and weight loss. We'll be adding other modules to that over time. And now we've opened up our first physical location in LA, and hopefully, the long-term vision is to have those centers all around the United States and maybe all eventually around the world. And the good thing about capitalism is if our ideas work, they're going to be copied.
Yeah.
And they're going to be iterated on. And so sometimes, a lot of way, Whole Foods' biggest impact that it had was not that we opened up a big chain and got to $22 billion in sales, and it was really that we changed the grocery business. Mm-hmm. Everybody saw what we were doing. I mean, grocery stores were so bad. You have no idea how bad supermarkets were 40 years ago. You might.
I'm old enough to remember.
Most people aren't old enough to remember how bad supermarkets were. They had bad produce. I mean, when I was a little boy, we didn't even have produce was still all localized. You just got stuff that was in season. You can say that's kind of a trendy thing now with farmers markets. But people, they really want their apples and avocados and lettuce. They want it year round. They don't want it just when it's in season. But when we first got started, it just wasn't available. When I was a kid, Anita Bryant was singing songs about Florida orange juice. And what a breakthrough was, you can get Florida orange juice all year round. My God, incredible. So Whole Foods had this huge impact of changing the supermarket industry, making fresh foods, putting them back importance from fresh produce to meat, seafood. I mean, almost no supermarkets sold seafood, for example. So we were successful, and then people copied us and imitated us and iterated on it. And so we changed the supermarket industry, or we contributed to changing it. I think Love.Life will do a similar thing. And other entrepreneurs will say, this is a good idea. In fact, I think I can do it better than Mackey's doing it, so we're gonna do something else, or we can do it cheaper or whatever. So I really do believe in capitalism. I pin my hopes on the future of the innovative creativity of humans. And young people don't yet know what they can't do. They're not yet pessimistic. For them, it's like, we can figure that out. And so we make progress in the world. And so I remain very hopeful and very optimistic that, we have challenges today, but, these are not the worst challenges humanity's ever faced. We had far worse challenges. I mean, I always try to tell people that if you go back 200 years ago, that 94% of everyone alive on the planet lived on less than $2 a day. 94% of everyone alive, and 85% lived on less than $1 a day. That's adjusted for inflation. The average lifespan was only 30. Illiteracy rates were 88%, which meant only 12% of the entire world population could read. It's just 200 years ago. Look how much progress humanity has made in the last couple of hundred years. There's every reason to think that we'll continue to make that kind of progress going forward. But we're not, we've made all this progress, but I've yet to have anybody tell me we're living in utopia. We're not. Still got all these problems. It's just better. It's better than it was. And people talk about, we still have racism. You got to be kidding. You know how much racism we had in America 250 years ago? 200 years ago? We had slavery, for God's sake. When I was a little boy, we had Jim Crow law. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was a little boy. They had colored fountains and colored bathrooms. And you're telling me that we have racism problems today? Yeah, but nothing like we used to have. We're better than we were. And I grew up in the patriarchy. My generation, women are the first ones that really broke through and got to become doctors and lawyers and do professionals. But before that, they mostly could just teach. That was what they were allowed to do, and then they were homemakers. So I've watched the patriarchy get crumbled. I've watched racism lessen. Yes, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about the future because, you know what? Creativity is limitless. There's no limit to individual creativity. Are there problems? Sure. We'll solve them. And we'll create new problems that the next generation after this generation will have to solve. That's the human condition.
Beautifully stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the conversation, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and also ring the bell for notifications. And if you want to know more about Free the People, go to freethepeople.org.